welcome. Can anybody hear me? Oscar? Hello? 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 Everyone, welcome. I love the buzz. I love you being here. You're in for such a special treat. Welcome to the Center for Brain Health Brain Performance Institute, where every square inch is dedicated to empowering your brain to be more agile, stronger, longer lasting. Don't we all want that? We're living longer, but it's not the quantity, but it's the quality that matters. And that's what we're all about, is how can
There's
we
some
make
seats in the back,
individuals
sweetie.
have
Yeah,
the highest quality of life with brain health as
Thank
their
you, Kata.
driver. Tonight, I have the amazing honor
Kata.
to introduce my dear friend,
Right here.
my mind stretcher,
Right
and
here.
my colleague, Bonnie Pitman. There's chairs right here, too. Come on, get your friends up here, Bonnie. Okay, listen to this. To know Bonnie, here
I am.
is to know the essence of what it means to be fully alive while facing her own mortality over and over and over again. To know Bonnie is to inspire in each of us what it means to rev up our brain health, our performance, to connect our humanity, and to know the science behind how we continually enhance our brain capacity. To know Bonnie is to be inspired to be innovative, to have a broader perspective, to love the people around you, to embrace the people who disagree with you, to develop insights into the meaning of living, and to create meaning in every single day. Okay, listen to the titles this woman bears. You're not going to believe it. Okay, titles. She gave me 2 pages of titles. I'm going to start with the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, which is she is the director of the Art Brain Innovations at the Center for Brain Health and the Brain Performance Institute.
Yay!
Yay! And you know what that is? It's the power of seeing the people we're talking to. We don't see the people that we're talking to anymore. We're in our technology or we're texting them. So if you will embrace what Bonnie teaches you tonight, you will see every single person differently that you talk to. You will embrace the experiences that you get to live and not just pass on and tick them off. She also has the title of Distinguished Scholar in Residence at the University of Texas at Dallas, which we are part of here. She is a distinguished scholar in residence at the Edith O'Donnell Institute of Art History at UT Dallas.
Okay, good.
And you will want to make all of your doctors be trained by Bonnie Pitman because she guides them to really see you as a person, as a patient, in front of them, because she directs art and medicine and is training physicians the lost art of observation. How did Bonnie Pitman get here? This amazing woman, UT Dallas, she was before us the Eugene McDermott director of the Dallas Museum of Art. She helped the museum raise over $200 million. She brought our art institute up to world class. You think of an award internationally known for art, and Bonnie Pitman has received it. How did she get to be part of our brain health team? Well, the blessings of life and the power of observation in knowing kindred spirits. You're in for a rare opportunity. You will never forget every moment you're with Bonnie Pitman. So please join me in welcoming the unparalleled spirit of innovation and courage of one of the most remarkable women I've ever met, Bonnie Pitman.
Oh my God, Sandy. Thank you. I'm truly not those things. I'm just, a survivor. I wanted to start off this evening by thanking Sandy Chapman. When I retired from the Dallas Museum of Art, Hobson Wildenthal, who's the very famous provost and vice president out at UTD, knocked on my door and said, please come and join me and us out at the university, and I want you to create a bridge between UT Dallas and the medical and cultural fields. And I took that up because it was something I had never done before, and I thought, well, of course, when you're retired, you want to start your life all over. And I took the one thing that I know a lot about, which is art, and then started partnering with different professors out at the University of Texas at Dallas. And along the way, Sandy and I have been friends, and she asked me to come to the Center for Brain Health way back in 1914, and 2014. Yeah, it was a long time ago. 2014. We both look so young. And we live forever, and in our spirits and our minds. And I gave my first talk on my Do Something New practice, which is a whole nother topic, but I'm going to start a lecture next year in a series of workshops. And Sandy then called me back after a little bit, and she said, we're developing this Brain Performance Institute. I'd love to have somebody who knows about the arts, and would you come down? And I met wonderful Leanne Young, who's over here, and within 6 months, we've already started a program with physicians at Baylor Hospital, and we're doing some training with them. So this is a place of opportunities, and for people like me, you get to reinvent yourself. The entire mission of my work is to bring together what I know best, which is the humanities and aesthetics, with neuroscience. So I want to ask your patience tonight. This is my first lecture on this topic, so if I stumble or fumble, just bear with me. And more importantly, we're going to have fun, so I'm going to make you work. A little paragraph here is that I unfortunately have a coughing, my illness that Sandy referred to as coughing, and I sometimes go into coughing spasms. I've taken so many drugs right now, it's a miracle I'm not floating, but so I should get through this fine, but do not worry if you hear this death cough. Leanne and everybody are prepared. I just step out, take some more puffs, and come back in. So here we go. So I want you all, very first thing, to close your eyes. Everybody close your eyes because we're talking about vision tonight. Close your eyes. I see a couple of you with your eyes open. And just take 3 deep breaths. And now with your eyes closed, don't open them. I want you to describe 5 things, name 5 things that the person sitting next to you is wearing. See if you can name 5 things. And if you can, raise your hand so I have a sense of, yay, there are hands going up all around the room. Good. Okay, some of you still working at it? Some of you.
They're saying underwear and stuff like that.
No. Okay, all right. A couple of you who have your hands up, you can now open your eyes. And it's okay. So I'm going to call on Kay first.
Okay. Well, I know that Sandy is wearing a navy dress.
Navy dress.
Sling shoes. Beautiful pearl necklace.
Absolutely.
And her eye makeup matches her blues.
Oh,
beautiful.
That's amazing. Okay.
Fred is wearing a sport coat.
Fred is wearing, no, Sandy, 5.
Oh, a 5 for her.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I stopped.
Okay. All right. But
People next to you. Okay.
all right. That's all right. All right. One other person. There we go. You did really well. All right. Now, nobody's putting your hands up anymore. This is Kalita.
Well, I knew what my husband was wearing.
All right.
Tie, handkerchief,
Uh-huh.
shine shoes,
Mm-hmm. Shine shoes. I like that one.
yeah, and a crocodile belt.
Okay, great. That's impressive. Okay, one other person in the back. She picked the tie out, so there's no, that was a pass on the tie. All right, one other person in the back. I'm incredibly patient, so I'll just wait. Yes.
She has a low-waist, she has a khaki pants, she has a shirt, a blue jean jacket, she's
this is exactly the point of my talk, is that we go through life and we don't really, we see it, but we don't really experience it. We don't really observe it. And my talk tonight is going to be about that process of learning the difference between seeing, looking, and observing, so that you can develop some skills that you can take for your whole life. And whether you're looking at a work of art or you're looking at a walk down the street, you're going to be in great shape. So with that, I was supposed to change this. So this was my life for a long time. Large photograph by Thomas Struth at the Pergamon in Berlin. And so my life was made up of people coming to the museum, which made me so excited. There was only one problem. They only looked at works of art, on average, how much time? 3 seconds. Oh, well, God, I hope it's more than 3 seconds. But that's probably true, too. 30 seconds? Any other guesses? 10? Well, somewhere between 10 and 30 is right. 17 to 21 seconds. So there's my job. I'm trying to slow people down to get them to spend more than 17 seconds looking at a work of art. So my whole life has been dedicated to making you slow down and have an experience, and we're going to try to do some of that. The important thing, of course, is none of us see the same way. And not a single person, if I look at you and you look at me, what we see is very different. And there's no two ways to get around that. There are many ways of seeing. Some is, of course, with your sight. Other people learn to do it with touch and with sound. And all these attributes help to create a full life. The amazing thing about sight, and I always am in awe of people who have lost their sight, is that 80% of what we learn through vision. Just think about that. 80% of what we learn through our vision. So that's why, in this day and age, my talks are mostly pictures in a desperate attempt to keep you occupied and you can remember the pictures. But it's really, occasionally I have text slides, and I always hate them because I always put a picture on most of the text slides, not all of them, because you're going to remember the picture. You're not going to remember the words. It's really sad. So I love this wonderful image by Salvador Dali. What do you think it is? Trees, but keep going. Brains, right. It's 3 different versions of brains. So keep looking. What are those brains? One is trees. One is a tree. So that means, think of the metaphor of a tree and a growth and new ideas. Okay. Innovation. All right. What's another tree? Huh? Yes. One is made out of this one in the front is about clouds. So it's more about that ethereal sensory quality. And the one in the back, I can't. Huh? Could be like a mountaintop, but there are 3 different aspects of our brain: our sensory, our knowledge, and our intuition. And so thinking about this, and Dali was an artist who loved to experiment. It's a wonderful way to introduce you to this subject. So I'm going to have 2 fact slides because everybody wants real facts, and I will give you these as we go along. But if you're one of those people that has to write down, and I know there are learners that want to write things down, this is your hope. Thing that I learned in the past 6 months since Sandy invited me, I've been doing all this reading on neuroscience and neuroaesthetics. It's like a crash course with Leanne and all the scientists here. It's a great privilege, but you can't read fast enough, and I just want to point that out. But I've been trying to catch up. And one of the things that I thought was so important is that I learned that our seeing takes up 50% of the functionality of our brain. It requires so many parts of our brain to operate. It's one of the most, your sight, your eyeball is similar to your brain as being one of the most complex organisms in your body. And processing sight is very complicated. And so that was one of the aha moments when I said, oh, I'm really investigating an important thing. That's because I was doing it intuitively, and this sort of validated that it was important. Yes. Oh, somebody. So then sight, this is the great moment where I wish we all had this is why I believe in closing your eyes and resting and then opening your eyes, because when you open your eyes, it's like this is an explosion of light and images that flow hit your millions of rods and cones in your eyes, and then all this transmittal goes on, and I'm trying to track all these things that go all the way back to the cortex of your brain, and so it's a very, very complicated process that we take for granted absolutely every single day. And what I want to do, of course, I've given everything away right here by showing you this slide, so you didn't see the slide, did you? No. So I want you to write down, there's a little thing here, just a couple notes about what you think the differences are between seeing, looking, and observing. And we'll just give a couple minutes. I mean, this is the whole talk, so if I gave it away, we're really in trouble. Seeing, looking, and observing. Hey, Roger. And these distinctions are important. And you're going to learn them, so don't worry if you just sit looking at your paper and saying, what is she talking about? Okay, so who's written down some words? You have.
I did. Okay. I said seeing is passive, it's just what you happen to see.
Right.
Or looking, you're seeking, and you're more active.
Okay.
We're observing, now you're analyzing what you saw or looked at.
Okay, so you can give the lecture.
Oh.
That was really good. Anybody? That was excellent, actually. Anybody want to add to that some other insights that you have? In the back, come on. This is a participatory session. Yes.
Seeing is registering an image.
Yes, registering an image. Very good.
Looking is generalized vision.
Yep.
While observing is attending to detail.
Attending. It's that process of really engaging. Okay. Did you want to add to that? Do you have new things?
I think of seeing as internalizing,
Uh-huh.
and looking is more external,
Okay.
and the observing is analyzing.
Okay. Great. Yes.
I was just going to add to observing. I think observing is always in context
Yes.
of what we already
Yes. Very important. Okay. In the back. In the back. Come on. No hands are going up in the back. Yes. There she is. Oh, that's so unfair. Okay, new ideas. Yeah, one more set of new ideas. Yeah.
Focused on the observing. Observing is analyzing, like everyone said. I observed here today that most people are writing their notes with pens and pencils instead of texting.
Yay.
So thank you to everyone who's writing with pens.
Yeah. So here's the way that I've worked through these definitions, and there's a lot of controversy, but that's okay, and that's what science is all about, different points of view. But in my analysis of this, seeing is capturing an image whether you intend to or not. It's the way that you navigate through these chairs and don't hit something. You're just sort of, your body, your whole senses know it's there, but you're not really, I'm not saying chair, person. You're just sort of moving. It's like climbing up a set of stairs. It's that process that prevents us from falling down, gives us an opportunity to understand the world around us. Looking is seeing with intention. It's when you slow down and you are beginning to make some decisions about what you want to, how you're going to filter all those thousands and thousands of images that are being processed in your brain. And you're actively sometimes beginning to look for an answer, but you might say, oh, I really love the orange, sorry for touching you, but the blue on your sweater today. And so I'm not only looking at you, but I'm now picking that out and your red glasses, which are pretty swift. Oh, I forgot that last one. Observing is witnessing and with intention. And that's what I'm going to talk about a lot today, because that's what I'm training the doctors on. We all see, we walk down the hospital corridors, we look, we might go into a room and see a patient, but do we observe? And that's the question that I'm trying to deal with in the medical field. And it's the intentional engagement, it's mindfulness, it's scientific analysis, it's very deep. And so the big part of this talk is going to be about that. So the simple way, I love this story, Sherlock Holmes, you all know who he was, right? The great detective. Well, this is the best example about the difference between seeing and observing. So one of the Conan Doyle's books, he talks about Sherlock Holmes is having in his study with his friend Watson, and Watson smoking his pipe and saying, you know, Sherlock, I don't really know why you think you observe so deeply and you see so much. I see just as much. And Sherlock rolls back in his chair and smokes his pipe and says, how many stairs are there coming into the house? He said, Sherlock said, how many times have you walked into this house, Watson? Watson goes, hundreds and hundreds of times. And then Sherlock poses the question again, how many stairs are there coming into the house? And he said, that's the difference between seeing and looking and observing. He, of course, knew the answer was 17. So I think it gives a wonderful kind of understandable way in which Sherlock Holmes did everything with intention. So here we go. We're going to start seeing. Seeing is to perceive with your eyes and to notice and become aware. And I'm going to use in each case a work of art and something from nature. So this is the great Chris Burden submarines. Have any of you seen it at the Dallas Museum of Art? Yay! It's not up all the time because there are hundreds of submarines. They're all made out of cardboard. And each, so when you walk by the room, what's called a quadrant gallery, that's what it looks like. You just sort of see these hundreds of submarines walking by, and you're not really sure what it is. It's just like a friend of mine, happily for all of us in the world, grows these amazing fields of tulips. And so you can walk by her house and you can see this field and field of tulips. This is seeing. I'm not stopping and looking at it. I'm just walking by. It's like me today in the art fair. Looking means you're looking with intention. So it's an active process. It's searching out. It's examining. It's at this point that you really begin to understand, oh, I might go, what's really going on in there? And you get up close to one of the submarines. Or you might begin to go and read the label or something more like that. And you realize these aren't real submarines. These are submarines made out of cardboard, a very fragile material, which is in contradiction to a submarine. And just like in that field of tulips, what I decided to do is I knew there would be one tulip that was going to have some hybrid in it. And I found the tulip. There were hundreds and hundreds of my 4 friends were all laughing at me as I'm climbing through the tulips, looking for the one tulip with a variation. And I found it that day. I was so excited. So observing is witnessing with intention. Now you're really up on top of Chris Burden's submarine. You realize now, because you may have read the label, that these are submarines. There's a submarine for every single submarine that has been made from 1870s until the 1980s. So 2 world wars of submarine. On the label, everyone is identified. And many times naval officers and naval men come in and they've served on these submarines and they have incredible stories to tell it. Now, all the submarines look like this. But because they can find their one submarine, it becomes a very personal experience. And so they look deeply at this work of art. They're mindful of their interaction. They're really thinking about the storyline and their examination. And by now, this is one when I was plowing through the tulips when I was beginning to smash some of them, but I got this great shot of the inside of the tulip with the stamens and the pistils and all of that. So you can do this whether you're in nature or you're with a work of art. So, important question. Do you trust what you see?
No, not anymore.
Yes or no?
Depends on what you're looking at.
Yeah, well, the answer is no. Don't trust what you see, because you really, there's no way that you see color the same way. You actually see 10 million colors, so there's endless variety. So what's happening here? What's moving? Up the airplane, right? But it doesn't look like it, does it? No, the airplane really is moving. This is movie magic, but it's an amazing photographs. These are kind of illusions that happen. What's happening here? Everything's moving. Does it move for everybody? Raise your hand if it all moves. I've never seen this slide. There's another one I had we stopped using because it doesn't. Most people say, take it off. What do you see there? Pac-Man? Okay, somebody see anybody else? Nice? Triangles, right. And is there really a triangle? No, there's no triangle. It's just three little Pac-Men lined up with their little mouths open, and it's an optical illusion. It's a gestalt. We want it to be a triangle, and so our brain makes it into a triangle. It's not physically a triangle. Oh, I know.
We always want to identify with something.
Yes, and our brain wants to complete stories. It may not have all, if it doesn't have all the cues, then it fills in for you. Very important. Okay, this is hard because this is a black lit screen, but how many colors are on that screen?
6.
Okay, how many say 6? Okay. 7, I like the 7, even better. And then how many say, what was it? 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3. I think there's one more than 4. You may not be on the right angle. Yeah, I'm just testing my angle over here. Pardon me, ladies. Okay, so how many of you said 5? Okay, so the majority of you got it right. It's not a good slide. I'll have to change the slide to make it harder. But in fact, the browns are exactly the same color, but they appear differently because of the background. And I just finished this exercise with medical students. It was so funny because we gave them sets of colored paper and had them shuffle around, and there were the huge arguments. And we found out that most of the surgeons, people who want to become surgeons, would not change their point of view. And we all started laughing because they said, no, there's only one color. It was really... Now, gray. How many shades of gray do you think you see? This is Gary's favorite color, so I always tease him about it. But how many shades of gray do you think the human eye sees? Thousands? Okay. There are 30 shades of gray. We see 10 million colors, but we really only see 30 shades of gray. Don't ask me why, because I don't know that part, but I know it's a fact. I read it enough in all the literature. So it's fascinating to us. And this is that gray strip in the middle is the exact same color, even though it changes. Isn't that interesting? Okay, so we don't see the same way. And that's because we observe and we gather information differently. We have inherited biology. Some people have color blindness. Other people have other eye conditions. Some of us just, don't pay attention. I'm in that category. And then we have our learned biases. This is very important, and this has a lot to do with how our brain operates, because it's the experiences that we've had in our life, the history that we have, very important, the values and cultural bringing, and of course our professions. And then my favorite, since I've been an art museum director, and I just went to the art fair today, is you go by and you say, I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like, and that comes from a accumulation of your points of view. And you can hold on to it, and we all have it, whether you're a professional in that field or not. We all have likes and dislikes. So this is the technical information on how our eye receives information, and I'm really going to skip over it because I want to talk about art. And but basically, when we receive an image, it comes into our eye upside down. You all know that? Great. And so then how do we scramble it? How does it get re-scrambled? So we're seeing the tree upside down. What happens next? Yeah. It goes up up through our retina into our brain, into our cortex. And so thank God we have that, because it's the electrical signals up there translated again, and often use many different parts of the brain to do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between seeing abstract art and figurative art and why we perceive that differently, because it's a very important process. So our sight without our brain is not possible. You have to have the two working together, and it's an absolute miracle when you begin to study this. And this is what happens, the visual analysis. So you can see your retinas up here, and all these little pulses, millions of pulses are coming through, and they cross. That's the piece, Sandy, I still don't understand. Why does everything have to cross over in the brain? But then it does, and then it comes back to our visual cortex, and that's where the interpretation of the world around us happens. And so it's without that combination of sight and your brain, you cannot process the world that we live in. Oh, so very quickly, I teach this course at the University of Texas. I was just there this afternoon, and we are mostly in the art museum, and today we did this class on color. So these are all yucky diseases that the dermatologist shows us and makes us analyze all these skin and nail diseases, which I won't get into. But she's pointing out the importance of color in diagnosing a patient. And then we take the students in, and I give them these color chips. They're called Pantone chips. And one of the things we did is we had all of them decide on which Pantone color their skin was. And one of the things, there's an artist that has documented that, and she's still doing this study, how many skin colors there are in the world. And what do you think the answer to that might be? Yeah. She's identified over 25,000 different skin colors, unique and different skin colors. And so there aren't enough Pantone chips for all these skin colors. So we have the students begin to do visual analysis and begin to try, that's even my phone, thank you. Katrina? So anyhow, there they are wondering what is going on, and we make them go through all of these Pantone chips, and one of the exercises here is 35 people have to agree on the color red. One color red. And how long do you think that exercise takes us?
Never have.
It takes a good 40 minutes because we work in groups, first of 5, and then 5 becomes 2 groups of, 3 groups of 15 in different combinations, and then it gets down to 2 groups, one that has picked one red and one that has picked another red. And we always end up having surgeons in both of them. So there are these people that just won't give. And so it takes a long time. And the reds are always very, very close. I bet you can guess. I mean, again, this is all distorted. But 1663 is one that's almost always chosen. And then the Chinese red, a lot of people. But there are hundreds and hundreds of colors of red. And we give them Pantone chips and make them go out into the galleries over at the hospital and identify different works. And this is the students working with the color theory that I was talking to you about. And this is actually a work of art at the hospital, Clements Hospital, and you can see it's based on the color theory of Joseph Albers. So, and here they are going out, and this is with Hilda Johnson. You can see them trying to decide which colors are in the actual paint. And it's a very intense discussion because they, again, they realize in small groups, don't you think this is red? You have red glasses on. No, you have purple glasses on. No, you have red. And so it goes back and forth, and that's just what we want. Marston Hartley, this is a painting hanging at the museum. It's one of my favorite. It's a fall scene in May, and just his use of red there is so vibrant and so beautiful. And it's not a very detailed painting. You can see it's the mountains and the fall trees, and it's filled with excitement and movement. And here is a close-up of one of the brushstrokes, just a detail of the brushstrokes. And you can see just in one brushstroke, just count how many colors of red there are in there. Isn't that amazing? So just by taking time, more than 16 or 17 seconds, to slow down and look at this beautiful Marston Hartley. And this is the section that I picked right up in here. You can relive this painting. You'll never forget that painting. I can't wait for you to go to the museum. It's on the 4th floor. Really, really beautiful piece. And the yellow is likewise is just gorgeous. Okay, this is another, this is a work by Tom Wesselman, not up at this time at the museum. But obviously red is here denoting lips, yes. Denoting. And there's an emotional response, a sensory response. Yes, somebody said it. I'm so proud. Did somebody really say sex? Yes, go girl. You know, I sometimes go through this exercise, I keep waiting, a cigarette, and I'm looking at it and say, what do you think you're looking at? You know, this is a very sexual painting. And we don't need, you know, in art, that's the best part of art. You can see anything. But when I first came to the museum, it was actually in the children's area. And so we had to take it out really fast. I wasn't really sure what was going on there, but it was an immediate change. Here's another famous red. And what is that? Coca-Cola. We all know that red, right? And most people think that is pure red, but actually Coca-Cola red is mixture of blues and black and red, so it's not a pure Pantone chip. They would have it that way, of course. So now we're transitioning. So you've seen there's the value of looking at color, how I begin to teach my students. And now I'm going to go into the real exciting part, and I promise you won't go to sleep, of this, which is how can you develop your observation skills? How can you leave tonight and have a better way of seeing the world around you and remembering the world around you, creating memories, having ways of experiencing things that is different than before you came in tonight. Are you all ready? Okay, I am too. So if it doesn't work, just don't tell me. But if it doesn't work, I want you to tell me, because we're in a testing stage. Leanne and I are trying to figure out if this is going to work or not. And I'm trying to deal with people. How many of you would call yourself an art person? Good, over almost half the group. And how many of you are scientists and professors? And smaller hand group. Okay, what do the rest of you do? I know we have designers. I hope you raised your hand over here. What other things? Yes. Bankers. Oh, love that. So bankers, teachers. Why did you come here tonight? Here I am talking about vision and observation. That's actually a really good question. Why did some of you come?
Better observe.
Well, that's good. Somebody in the back, tell me, why did you take...
Experience.
Huh?
User experience, you're talking through
Oh.
user experience.
You think I'm designing systems. I'm going to really disappoint you. Huh? Oh, good. Oh, you design experiences. Well, this is the place for you to be. Yeah, you're going to come away with a whole new way of looking at it. Okay. So I need to meet all of you, but I couldn't do that before. So here are the tricks. You want to learn how to scan, then you want to learn how to attend, and then you want to learn how to connect. And then, very importantly, how can I transform that? Because it's in the transformation, connecting and transformation process that you're developing a memory of this experience, which is really important. And without those two steps, it's just, it floats through your brain. It'll stay there, but it's not going to be something that you easily recall. So this is what we're going to do: scanning, attending, connecting, transforming. So first of all, scanning. How many of you seen this at the museum? Ellsworth Kelly. Yay! So lots of people. And it's a great work of art. It tells you you're at the museum. There's an orientation to this piece. It goes up, it floats over the garden. It's a quick inventory, and now, it's gone, which is true. So we're scanning. We're not looking deeply, right? And what's this? Skyline. And what's that? It's a painting, right? Okay, and we're coming back to it, and this is the great Tamayo painting at the museum. You probably have all seen it if you've been there, and that's the end of that. So scanning is just a few seconds. You're walking by, you're saying yes, no, maybe so. Attending is just like these ancestor figures. You are slowing down and taking a time, not 17 seconds. This is when the shift happens. You are slowing down and taking a moment, focusing intentionally on the object. And these ancestor figures, if you were with me in the museum, I would make you all stand up and get in this posture and hold it for 2 minutes, because your knees are bent and your back is straight, and it's almost impossible to do. But it reminds you that ancestor figures are intended to help you through the passage of time and the knowledge different civilizations share. And so that notion of I'm in full attention, fully present, is what this phase is about. And it often requires your this moment with your senses. You're beginning to describe and analyze what you see in front of you. So here we are in downtown Dallas, and I'm driving. Always dangerous to take pictures while driving. I do not recommend this, but sometimes I just can't resist myself, and so I do it. And so here I was driving. Remember the first picture of the downtown Dallas? And did you see the Fountain Place building in the corner? Maybe you didn't, but now we're in downtown Dallas and we're driving down the street. And what I got captivated with is I.M. Pei's how this building changes as you drive down Ross Avenue. Not Ross Avenue, which avenue is this? Main, yeah. So I don't know street names, but I know roughly where I am. And and how the perspective changed and the reflections on the building changed. So, and then all of a sudden you could see the crane. And here with the Olin Travis painting of the mayor of Hoover. Now we're just going to slow down, and I want you to pick one section, if you can see it, of that painting, and just sort of enjoy looking at it. Think about it. What's going on? Is it his face or something in the background? What do you see the connection between the foreground where the mayor is standing and the background where his family is situated? Just sort of slow down and take a few seconds to look at it, to try to remember. And now the great Ruth Tamayo, El Hombre. This painting is located in the atrium of the museum because it doesn't fit anywhere else. It was originally commissioned by Stanley Marcus in 1953 for the one of the centennials that was here, Texas Centennial, or one of those big fairs, and it got lost on the train. So I hope you're looking at that, not me. And it's all about El Hombre, the man reaching up to the stars, that motion of reaching up. So the question I have for you is, how does he depict that in this picture? What does he do to begin to move it up? Create a sense of movement from the very bottom of the ground all the way up to the skies. Okay, next picture. Connecting. Now you want to make new connections. You want to apply knowledge that you've got and apply it in new ways because your brain's working in new ways. And this is often when we apply things about ourselves. How many of you walked in a field of tulips? Yeah, you're Texans, that's right. We don't have a lot of tulips here. That's why Dooley's tulips are so... Bluebonnets. How many of you walked in bluebonnets? Yay! Okay, that was the right question. And then, so you're connecting your old self, your childhood, your memory with your family with a new experience looking at bluebonnets. We have to change this to bluebonnets, yeah. And then, and your world. And meaning is beginning to emerge out of these ideas because you're making new connections in your brain back and forth. And you're understanding, this is very important with the doctors, they need to understand different points of view, and they need to understand what their biases are, because their biases often dismiss those of us who are their long-term patients. And they need to really value diverse perspectives. So this is a great damier, and you can see everybody's up at the print seller studio trying to look very carefully, intently at this work and get some new ideas. So when I came to Texas, I thought Dallas was an oil town, right? JR Oil. And it was new news to me when I found out that Dallas was what, in fact? Cotton fields. And this fabulous painting by Otis Dozier is in the museum. It shows the 3 phases of a cotton blossom and really talks about the cycle of life that you have. And so for me, that was profound new knowledge about, and it changed everything I thought about Dallas. I thought it was a cow town and an oil town. It wasn't. It was banking and cotton, and then it became an oil town after that. It was a changing economy. So new information changes your perspective. How many of you looked at the Otis Dozier in the back of the painting? Yeah, and so did you know right away the travails of the dust storm? And so this is some of the research about the dust storm in the great 1930s and how devastating it was on the families and the individuals that were there, that there was no way to get out of it if you lived in this, pretty much in the central region of the United States. And with the El Hombre, he's reaching up to constellations. And happily for me, I was able to find what I think are the constellations because they have the internet, and you can look up Texas constellations. And at any rate, whether it's right or wrong, Roger, you don't need to tell me, but it'll do. But it's the whole idea that reaching up to the stars, reaching up to different points of view, different histories, and the whole notion of that experience is really personified. And we can do that all by ourselves. And the last phase is, very importantly, transformation. So I picked this wonderful image because you'll all get it, right? It's the beginning of the world. It's a what? Yeah, it's an egg. It was a work of art that was given to the museum when the Dallas Museum lost the bond issue. The first bond issue, and this wonderful donor, Mr. Clark, came down to the museum, and he had the egg, it's a marble egg, in his Pan Am tote bag, and he walked in. I know this is worth a lot of money then, I can tell you it's worth a lot more money now, and put it on the desk of the director, Harry Parker, and unzipped it and said, I'm giving you this, the Brancusi, beginning of the world, because we have to begin again. And we're going to build this museum, and the citizens are going to come behind it. So it's such a great story. And that's what you're doing. You're doing the same thing here. In transformation, you're the egg, and now you're opening up into new ideas. So how many of you knew that the I.M. Pei building was originally going to be 2 towers downtown? 6 people in the room. Isn't it amazing? 2 towers. This is what it should have looked like. I want to have those developers go back, and it was in the 80s, and they ran out of money, and that was the end of that. But what a difference that would make if the Fountain Place had 2 towers. So this is transforming. Hopefully you'll never see Fountain Place the same way. Okay, now with the Travis painting, there are so many ways to interpret this at this level, but I thought Woody Guthrie, who wrote so many really important songs at this time about the Dust Bowl, and you don't have time to read all of that, but it's that notion that all the arts come together. And once you read these poems and see those photographs, the experience that this man was having was, I think you gain a profoundly different perspective on it. And the travel, I love this line, the old landlord, he got my homestead, but he can't get me. That old dry spell killed my crop, boys, but it can't kill me. Lord, it can't kill me. Kind of a defiance. And this is it's a very personal interpretation because of the whole immigration policy going on. But El Hombre is really about that soaring ascent of man, the ability to love the sciences and the art, to be free and to move upwards. And I chose this sign to put up against it just to rattle your experience. Because Tamayo, when he was trying to get this painting delivered to the Dallas Museum of Art, was taken out of the ability to cross the border because the customs people had no idea what an artist would be doing with these huge panels. There's 7 huge panels, and he must be doing something wrong. And so he was held up, and it wasn't until Stanley Marcus and some dignitaries from the World's Fair went down and got him that they were able to get him into the country. And he was held up because he was a Mexican. And so that's going on today. And that's why he painted this incredibly aspirational painting about our freedom and our view. So what are the steps? Scanning? Okay, do they make sense? You got it? Now you can go home. So we're going to do this. I'm just going to run through this really quickly, just using my favorite painting, one of my favorite paintings in the museum. It's the Icebergs by Frederick Church, made in 1773. And the poor man went up and he experienced the waves off of Newfoundland and was in a boat and did all these sketches, and then he came back and didn't paint anything for 2 years because he couldn't face it. He had been so seasick. And then literally, then he came back and did this composite painting of the icebergs off of there. So here we go, scanning. Just look at it quickly. These are, what are they called, neurons in your brains? Yep. See, I'm getting better every day. Okay, now what are you doing next? Scanning, and what's the next step? Attending. So pick a spot and look at it carefully. Okay, now take a break. Shake out a little bit because I'm going to push you on. Okay, now we're connecting, yes. So here, when you're connecting, what do you want to do? Begin to put things together. So you might begin to look at, are any of the icebergs melting? What are the different sounds what are the ways the icebergs move? Why is that mast in the front of it? One of the reasons is to give it scale in the painting. Do you have a new place? Are you looking in new places at it? Did you find some colors that you didn't expect? And then transforming. So I want you to just imagine that have any of you been up to Antarctica to hear the icebergs or one of those Arctic cruises? Oh my gosh, you can tell we're Texans. So, yeah, you did?
Alaska, right?
Alaska. And what do they sound like?
Oh, the crack, and it was huge, big noise.
Big noise. They crash, they crack, they move because the ice is expanding and contracting. And in the diaries of Frederick Church, that's one of the things he talks about the most, is how much noise it was and how extreme the noises were on his ear. And also how dangerous it was, because you could be rowing. He was in a little rowboat. He left the big boat and he went out to sketch. And then all of a sudden, clunk, a huge chunk would fall down right close to him. So his diaries are amazing. The other thing you want to know about this painting is that it was purchased by the Hunt family here in Dallas and given to the Dallas Museum of Art at the end of its first, when the first building was being given, and in downtown Dallas. And the Hunts paid the most that had ever been paid for an American painting in history, to buy the church. And they bought it so it would come to the Dallas Museum of Art. And no, I'm not going to tell you how much it costs. You can look it up on the internet, because museum people don't talk about money. So here we go. So the last is a whole nother section. See, this is a good pause point. I know it's 8 o'clock. And I'd love to take questions, so I'll skip. You have to come back next year, I hope you will, where I talk about abstract and figurative art and how we see it differently and how it operates in different parts of the brain. And I'm hoping, Sandy, this is the beginning of a series of lectures and talks and workshops that will help people come together. So I'll take some questions. Oh, thank you. Love to have some questions if anybody has any. Yes.
So I have heard this, but I don't know that it's true. Do generally men and women perceive color like different quantities of color? So I have heard that women have a much broader range of distinct colors.
No. Just start over. You can do it. You can do it.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? Is it? Okay, now it's on. Okay. Is it true that women typically see a broader range of colors than men are, like, physically capable of seeing?
Well, you're talking about the rods and cones in your eyes. So
Maybe.
I don't have an absolute answer for that, but I know which person I can go to and get an answer for whether there's a difference between men and women's ability to identify color. But I honestly don't know the answer. Good question, though. Okay, others? Yes. Carlos, yeah.
5 years from now, what do you want your medical students to be able to do?
What do I want them to be able to do? Well, there are three things that we talk about with the medical students. The whole class is a 8-week, 2.5-hour session week. Courtney Crothers, who's here with me from the UT Southwestern Medical School, she's this curator, and I teach it with a Dr. Heather Wickless. And our goal really is to get the students to learn how to look more deeply, to slow down and to look more deeply, to understand that to read a patient, they need to do more than look at their chart. They need to walk in the room and see, are there images around the patient? Does she have a shawl on? Are there pictures of the family? Is anybody visiting them? To see the patient as a whole, because those are all cues that are very important to their diagnostic abilities. And then the third thing is to develop their sense of empathy and compassion when dealing with patients and with each other, because I just experienced this afternoon, as I mentioned, some of them have already formed pretty strong opinions. I see those are the same color browns, and the person right next to them is looking at the same two browns and saying, no, they're two different browns, or they're one color brown, or whatever, but they don't have any flexibility to change their point of view. And that's because in the 4 years we've been teaching it, I think these students are on a track to be successful doctors, and they don't really think about how they have to interact with the world around them. One of the things I won't do when my doctors, and my doctors are great, but when they bring in their interns, if they do not look at me when I'm in the hospital and talk to me directly, I will not answer their questions. So I invite you to all do that. And I say, put down your pads and look at me and ask me a question. I know they want to see me because I'm a medical experiment, but they don't have the privilege of experimenting on me unless you are really paying attention to me. So great question, Carlos. Yeah. In the back, yeah.
Are you aware now of the DMA? Are there tours or particular guides who you would recommend?
What?
Guide you would recommend.
We have wonderful volunteer docents who I train twice a year at the museum. I do teachings for really just the medical students and others that are, that we're going to be doing some over there with physicians, 50 physicians on Tuesday. So I tend to work with, what would you call that? Directed education, but the docents are all pretty good. And they have tours on Wednesdays, and sometimes they pick one or two objects. I'm a great believer in just look at two things. I took a tour for our BrainHealth colleagues, and I did only 4 objects in 1 hour, but they'll never forget them.
Never.
And with that,
That's a good idea to plant the seed there.
Yeah.
Of taking this, that there would be a special class.
Yeah. And anyhow, I hope you'll come back. I know it's take her away time, and but I really thank you for this opportunity, and I'll be hopefully teaching more here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello. Thank you so much. I want to skip ahead. My name is Dee O'Neill. I head up our corporate and executive programs. Just one more final shout out. See, there's more, but we want you to definitely follow Bonnie on Instagram. She posts every day pictures she takes that is just amazing. And just by a show of hands, if you weren't already in love with Bonnie Pitman, are you now in love with Bonnie Pitman?
Oh.
I mean, this woman is extraordinary, and we were so lucky. We were on the tour of DMA. She took us to 4 or 5 of her favorite pieces of art, and I will never look at those pieces the same way ever again. It's just extraordinary. So we hope to set up more of those. Thank you so much, Bonnie. One more round of applause for Bonnie.
Oh, thank you.
And just to close, one very final plug. Thank you all for staying with us tonight. We have a couple of things we want to highlight. Please join our Brain Performance Movement. Be an advocate. You're now part of the Brain Performance and Brain Health family. And a couple things you can take advantage of. You have the upcoming events on your flyer there. The next thing we'd like to highlight is our SMART training. Who's been through a high-performance cognitive training? I know a few of you have. Awesome. We teach 9 cognitive strategies to optimize brain performance. And lastly, our next Sips in Science talk, May 3rd, Bill Benjamin from the Institute for Health and Human Performance will be talking about the science of emotional intelligence. So it's already kind of filling up. It'll be a full house like this. So get your tickets soon if you'd like to come. Thank you all so much for coming, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Sandy. Oh, great.